Hey everyone, this is Joanna. Welcome back to Her Voice, Her Power, the podcast where we dive into the personal stories of women's life in modern China. I'm happy to be joined by Lynn.
Hi everyone, I'm Lynn. So glad to have you here.
This week, we're looking into our three-child policy. Why is our birth rate still so low, even with the government encouraging more kids? Shall we start with the numbers?
Sure. China's birth rates from 2021 to 2024 are respectively 7.52, 6.77, 6.39, and 6.77 per mil. From those, we can see that the birth rate declined in 2022 and 2023. Even if there was an increase in 2024, it was still lower than that in 2021. The implementation of the policy hasn't resulted in a stable increase in birth rate, and it tells us there's a missing piece here.
Exactly, and that missing piece is the voice from the people at the center of this policy. High-educated married women. Over the next 15 minutes, we'll hear three powerful real stories. We'll first hear from someone who's seen one side of this up close, a friend of mine, Maggie. She used to work in HR for a company, and since she's left the role now, she's willing to share some insider thought about how the three-child policy affects women in hiring.
Hi Joanna, hi Lynn, hi everyone. Thanks for having me. It's good to finally talk about this openly, since I don't have to hold back anymore. As a former HR, I'd like to share my experience when I was responsible for the recruitment at my previous company.
Maggie, thanks so much for joining us on the phone today. Let's start with a quick question. From your HR days, how did the three-child policy change the company's perspective at hiring women in childbearing age, especially high-educated ones?
So overall, the three-child policy will push companies to consider more carefully when employing female workers of childbearing age. All women face discrimination when seeking jobs. It is still possible for women to find a job, but it will become more and more difficult to find a good job.
That's such a stark reality. Could you share a particular experience you had while recruiting?
Of course, the potential pregnancy during employment significantly reduces the competitiveness of high-educated married women seeking jobs. Sometimes, the companies rather hire male employees who are not high-educated than high-educated capable women. Here's an example of recruitment when I was a HR. The firm was recruiting for a finance position. Candidate 1 is a female candidate who is unmarried and single. She has a master's degree in finance from a 211 project institution, which means top-tier university in mainland China. Candidate 2 is a female candidate who is married with no children. She has a finance degree from an ordinary university. Although the level of her graduate school is not that good as the first candidate, she has an advantage of experience. She has years of financial experience at a large company. Candidate 3 is a male candidate who is unmarried and single. He only has a junior college degree and 2 years of accounting experience at a non-finance company. In the first round of recruitment, candidate 2 was eliminated, even though she had a higher education degree than candidate 3 and more working experience than candidate 1.
Wait, so candidate 2 had the most experience. Why wasn't she a shoo-in?
The reason is quite simple. She is married but has no children. The firm is least willing to hire married women without children, even if they are high-educated or experienced or whatever, because it's risky and costly. The firm holds the view that married women without children are most likely to give birth as soon as they start working. Then the company has to pay for the paid maternity leave and also distribute her original work to other employees. Unmarried single women, like candidate 1, are relatively more popular than married but childless women, like candidate 2, because the possibility of pregnancy is lower. But candidate 1 still didn't get the job. Candidate 3, who is a man, finally got hired.
But from the description, Candidate 1 has the best education background.
Because candidate 3 is a man and the firm prefers hiring male candidates. Hiring men is the safest option. Men can never be pregnant, so the firm can avoid the financial burden of paid maternity leave and other potential costs. Actually, the firm follows an unspoken principle in recruitment. When there is a male worker, hire the male worker. If not, hire the least risky female worker. The least risky female workers refer to the women who are least likely to get pregnant after getting hired, usually the women who are married and have 2 children.
Why does the firm prefer hiring married women with 2 children? What about married women with 3 children?
The married woman with 1 child is highly likely to give birth to another, getting pregnant again. The married woman with 3 children may have lower working efficiency as they have to spend more time taking care of the baby. So married women with 2 children seem to be the most stable. However, the 3-child policy can push the company to consider even more carefully when hiring women with 2 children, because these women may not be as stable as before, the time before the 3-child policy. Will these women respond to the policy and have 1 more child? This becomes the concern of the company.
From your view, do other companies also follow the hidden principle in recruitment?
I think so. I have read some posts under the discussion, will the 3-child policy lead to increased discrimination and pressure for women in the workplace? How should we respond? On Zhihu, a social media app, where some women share their experience of seeking jobs. A woman was asked by the HR about her marital and childbearing status. She told the HR that she was married but has no children, and the HR immediately turned cold towards her, which means that she would not be hired. Another woman shared her experience of campus recruitment. The HR would rather hire a male student who failed many courses than a top-ranked female student.
Thank you for being so honest about this. It's crucial to understand that workplace discrimination isn't just simply about bad bosses. It's a systemic issue sometimes. Let's carry this forward as we hear from our next guest, who's lived this reality as a working mom, Phoebe, a 985 educated working mom of 3.
Hi, Joanna and Lynn. Nice to meet you guys. You can call me Phoebe, and I'm glad to share my experience today.
Hello, Phoebe. Thank you for joining us. Can you tell us a bit about your career before starting a family?
Sure. I'm currently a working mother and just had my 3rd child. In 2009, I graduated with a degree in languages from one of the 985 universities, which is one of the best universities in China, and moved to Beijing, where I started my career at a foreign invested enterprise. But last year, after working 10 years for my company, I made a decision to step away to be more present for my 2 children. I transitioned into a less demanding role that offers me a great flexibility for parenting.
I see. So, what made you decide to have this 3rd kid?
Honestly, that was a really hard decision for me. My 2 kids were already 6 and 8. They have passed the age needing my constant care. It seems that my life has finally found its balance. So the day I found out I was pregnant with our 3rd, I just sat outside the hospital for 2 hours. It felt like I was back at the starting line of this long journey of motherhood. I thought for a long time whether I should have this child or not. But my husband talked with me, persuaded me, and encouraged me to accept this for our family. I also have sometimes thought that a new life is always a blessing, so in the end, we decided to welcome this child.
That decision must have taken so much courage. Did you face any challenges in your career after having kids, especially the 3rd one?
Definitely yes. I had the experience of working and being pregnant at the same time before, so I continued working even before my delivery day and returned to work soon after my leave. But during the promotion period after I came back, my boss told me that because I needed to breastfeed and I may deprioritize work for being a mother, the promotion was going to a male colleague whose working attitude was not that serious. This really makes me disappointed.
Oh, that's devastating. When your hard work gets overlooked just because you're a mom, it feels like a double standard, doesn't it?
Yes, and I know I'm not alone. A friend from my hometown told me that in her company, it's an open secret. If you're pregnant, you shouldn't even expect a promotion. And she said this situation is even worse in smaller cities.
So, what challenges have you or maybe other working mothers you know faced in raising your children? We've actually noticed that to support the three-child policy, the government has introduced many measures, such as extended maternity leave and subsidies.
Another friend of mine who works at a foreign invested company told me that they do have a nursing home, but every mother using it is always in a rush. That's because the company requires them to check in and out, and the nationally mandated nursing break is only 1 hour. When I heard this, I was stunned. I thought about the smoking rooms many companies have, because men can go there anytime without time limits. After a year, mothers can't go to the nursing home. She told me she then has to use her lunch break or even her toilet break to pump. So she is under immense pressure. To make this matters worse, her family elders give her lots of anxiety, warning that after a long stressful day outside, her milk will carry negative energy or internal heat that could pass to the baby. But she is physically uncomfortable for engorgement, and her baby is crying to be fed.
No wonder so many working mothers feel burnt out. You also mentioned feeling stigmatized for being a highly educated mother of 3. Can you talk more about that?
Well, for me, people's prejudices have brought me a lot of negative emotions. Many male colleagues, and even some young female colleagues, think that having children is a foolish thing for a highly educated woman like me to do, and they look down on mothers of 3. I've been talking to a lot of moms in different companies lately, and my sense is that state-owned firms and public sector units are often more supportive of mothers with 3 kids. The pressure is lower and they have flexibility like trading shifts. One of them says she did not meet any unfair problems because of the speciality of the job of a teacher. They might have problems in balancing the time, but most all of them did not meet difficulties when they returned to their work after giving birth to a child.
Then what about private and foreign invested companies?
Well, they might talk about gender equality and even have fixed number quotas of female leaders. The reality on the ground is a much heavier workload and intense performance pressure. I remember I saw a report before. It said that foreign invested enterprises have a higher performance for hiring women than domestic enterprises in China, which is truly the case. However, the competitive pressure in these companies is higher, and they often struggle to provide working mothers with the same level of benefits as their overseas counterparts. This is because they have to focus on efficiency to make more money, which means there are limited employees to cover when mothers have to leave for childcaring. Consequently, these mothers face significantly greater physical and mental stress, making it much harder to balance their time.
It's just so frustrating. I think a lot of us hear about the policy the state has put in place to help working moms. But sometimes it's like that. They get stuck somewhere between the paper and real life.
Perhaps we need to think from another aspect. If both national policies and corporate rules are hard to change, especially when they have already made some efforts, could working mothers find a solution through building their own support systems and helping each other?
That's such an important reminder. Community matters in this moment. Maybe there are more actionable things women can actually do to lift each other up, such as sharing resources like affordable nannies, flexible working from home opportunities. It's not perfect, but it's something. Thank you, Phoebe, for sharing your truth so openly. Let's wrap up with our third guest, Selena, who got a different perspective on balancing motherhood and career.
Thank you, host. Hello, everyone. As a mother of 3, I'm glad to share my own story as a follower of the 3-child policy.
Hello, Selena. We're so grateful to have you here. We're eager to hear your thought.
Well, based on my experiences, I would say it is quite double-sided to be a mother of three, which is not so pessimistic as a majority of people might have thought. You can't evaluate through a single dimension of positive or negative, but I just want to claim that I'm not and won't be regret having three children.
Happy to hear that you are having fun being a mother. Well, many young women are anxious about having children. No need to say multiple because of the motherhood penalty also mentioned previously. Your story seems to offer a different perspective. What do you believe is the key prerequisite for responding to the three-child policy?
Frankly speaking, I deeply understand this well-spread concern. When women interrupt their careers due to childbirth, experience reduced income, and narrow down their social circles, they may indeed face real challenges to their voice within the family and their economic autonomy. This, in turn, can impact their family standing and social status. That's what I also have encountered. And honestly, the judgment from others sometimes hurts more than practical challenges. I remember clearly that when we shared that we're going to have a third child online and with friends, one of the most liked comments under my post was accusing me of just wanting having a son. Since we already had two daughters, even close friends would joke, two girls would never be enough, huh? Whether they meant it or not, the underlying bias truly stung. My genuine love for children was often met with suspicion, not respect. That's when I realized, beyond practical barriers, one of the biggest obstacles for women, especially highly educated women, is the cognitive trap that forces us to choose between motherhood and personal growth shaped by the outdated conventional expectations.
Must be hurt when hearing such voices. It's true that we often hear public voices, sometimes even from certain feminist circles, criticizing women who choose to have children as somehow betraying the ideals of independence. What's your response to that?
I believe we should move beyond simply criticizing the reproduction and the policies themselves to respect the role of motherhood. Those voices labeling mothers as somehow failing to be truly independent are just another form of prejudice, ironically limiting women's freedom to choose who they want to be.
So how do you, as a highly educated woman, handle this tension between motherhood and independence in your own life?
As an individual fashion designer with advanced education, I knew myself better than any other does. Therefore, I don't think we can't handle self-development and family care at the same time. In fact, I believe our education and abilities empowered us to do just the opposite, to approach motherhood not as an obstacle, but as a meaningful life project. We were taught to plan our careers, our finances, and our personal growth. Why should family planning be any different? It's only about whether we have sufficient intention, support, and strategies, which is what we request from those policies.
We always think that the more educated a woman is, the less likely she's going to get married and have kids, right?
Surprisingly, I once read about a study indicating that women with higher education level tend to be more willing to have a child than those with lower education in Finland, and I did get some inspiration from that. Because of the development of society, people's definition of mothering shifted from simply household chores to actually a management position that requires real skills, such as educational psychology, time management, and sometimes also financial planning. That's why I'm glad to have children after receiving my high degree of education. It's not about how the master's degree itself is so impressive, but the habit and ability gained during my studies enable me to be a good mother. Always be well planned, calm amidst chaos, and supportive. Summarizing from my own perspective, what education gave me wasn't just a diploma, but the ability and confidence to have more autonomy when facing decisions about childbirth.
Hearing you say this, I suddenly realized an important shift that we used to always see education and childbirth as opposing choices. But you're actually showing us that how education has actually become a valuable resource for modern women in managing family life.
Exactly. The research also proves that when social support is in place, women can indeed balance self-development and family without any sacrifice. Therefore, I think we could learn a lesson from Finland that policymakers should shift their focus from compensating women for so-called losses of self-sacrifice to building a more childcare-friendly environment that allocates the duty of childcare to every society member. For example, providing quality public childcare services by the community and truly encouraging the responsibility of parenting to be a gender-regardless work. Only when women feel supported by every other person in their life can reproduction then transform from an anxiety-filled decision to fruitful milestone they might want to experience heart-filledly.
Exactly. Thank you, Selena, for sharing your story.
Wow, Joanna! Hearing this woman's stories really broadens my horizons of the three-child policy's real-world impact, especially alongside China's latest support measures like the national 3,600 RMB annual child care subsidy per child under 3, extended maternity leave, now more than 158 days in most provinces, and expanded tax deductions for child care costs.
Yes, these policies are such important step forward. However, as our guest shared, there are still so many gaps.
That's why we want to invite you, our listeners, to take part in our forum. Given current policies, what adjustments do you think would help highly educated married women most in childbirth and parenting? Have you noticed a blind spot that policymakers haven't addressed yet? What can we learn from other countries' population policies?
Drop your thoughts in the comment below. We're reading every single one and we'll highlight the most thought-through ideas in our future episode.
And if you have more stories and discussions on Chinese motherhood, feel free to phone in next time to share your experiences.
Thank you for listening, for caring about these stories. If you haven't already, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next episode.